What is good, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another edition and episode of the Fundamism Podcast. I'm your host and master of shenanigans, Paul Long, and we got a good one. We got a good one in store for you because if you've been following the Fundamism journey, specifically in 2021, we're really focusing in on the how, right? Like there's a lot of folks talking about why and what to do, but the how is the most important thing because if we want to take action in changing our life and generating more joy, fun, and fulfillment, we have to know what it looks like and how to embody it. And so we have a guest today that I am honored to have and super excited to obviously introduce, but you know the deal. Before we get to her and all of her glory, I have to shout out my best friends, my business partners in crime, staunch advocates of the Fundamism Podcast, and just philosophy in general, Charlie Hustle. Charlie Hustle, they've been with us from the jump. We love them with all of our heart. Chase has been just a great, I'm going to say mentor. He doesn't know this. But he's been a great mentor in my life from a business perspective. But most importantly, they have amazing threads. So if you're into t-shirts and apparel and comfy clothes, go to charliehustle.com to learn more. Now, I said that I'm excited for today's guest. And the reason why I'm primarily excited, and I just hit on it, is because she's all about not just talking about it, but being about it, right? Life is all about manifestation. So this young lady is a writer, a brand strategist, a marketer, and author of Believe It and Behave It, How to Restart, Reset, and Reclaim Your Life. Ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, we got Kate Harvie. What's good, Kate?
Dude, what's good? I mean, what's good is I woke up today. That's the fact.
Yeah, so that's a small stepping stone to all of the greatness that you're about to become and go forth and conquer in.
I mean, every day that's the opportunity, right? But to your question, what's good? What's good is this year, as my colleague and friend Rick Barrio Dale of Vintage Trouble said to me a couple months ago, in 21, we get it done. We get it done. We don't wait for it. We don't hope for it exclusively. We don't dream about it. All that, yes. And we do it. We make it happen.
Well, what a perfect segue to our featured fundamental. So we are really working on these tactical behaviors to improve joy, fun, and fulfillment and quality of life, both at work and at home. And because you are our featured guest, our featured fundamental is literally yours. It is the title of your book, Believe It and Behave It. And you just kind of touched on it. It's all about manifestation and not talking about it, but going out and doing. But before we get to that, because we're going to have an awesome, lengthy, and very thorough discussion of how to have more fun in life and manifest things, whatever you so desire. The people want to know, Kate, what do you do for fun?
So I'm 46 and a half. And so my idea of fun is super old school. So I've got the fun when we're not in the pandemic. And then I had to shift that a little bit for the pandemic. So for the sake of, life that is not Stanley Kubrick meets James Cameron, which is the COVID situation, it is things like talking to people in person, whether they are my old friends or my new friends. They are things like cooking, going to hear music, whether it's at some big venue or somewhere small. It also is doing things like playing skee ball, which I know it's not Fortnite, and I get that. At the same time, there is something about, throwing that ball and getting it where it goes in the hoops. I think that's huge.
It's amazing. I love skee ball. I'm not good at it, but so I got a question for you, Kate. Two questions, actually, follow-up questions to your fun. First of all, in playing skee ball, I'm a bank artist, so I go up top and off the side to try and bank it in. Do you go straight on, or are you trying to bank it off the side?
So first, I need to evaluate the weight of the ball. Okay. Are they the old school wooden ones, like in the old carnivals, where you're going to get a splinter if you hold it and grip it in a certain way, or is it the somewhat sleeker, more lucite, pool hall type balls? So the weight of it's going to guide me as to whether I can, really underhand throw it like old school softball, Or does it have, is it not as heavy? So if I wanted to kind of like, oh, I think I'm cute, I'm going to try to hook shot that. I'll do that because I'm usually the oldest person playing at the skee ball or the only person playing at the skee ball. So I might play with it because, I'm not really worrying about the tickets that are going to come out or the prizes I'm going to get. It is more about, the sound of that ball when it drops down there. It's simple. So I'm going to strategize based on what the ball is. How tragic is that answer, though?
No, you're going to use your resources and the tools that you're given to maximize success. I love it. It's kind of a strategy for life here. Another follow-up question, and this is super important to me because music is my lifeblood.
I get that.
It is everything to me. So you mentioned that you really enjoy going to live concerts and venues pre-COVID. What is, or top three are the greatest concerts you ever been to?
So there's a question I like to ask people that I'm getting to know for real. If they could go back in time or go forward in time, what concerts would they want to attend? Because it'll be possible one day, maybe. So, but to your question, in the reality of life, top three, and not in any order, because I don't have it like that. The most meaningful concerts I've ever been to, seeing, not told chronologically, the first show I ever saw at the Apollo Theater was D'Angelo. And that was in every way glorious, having first heard him.
Sorry, keep going.
Yeah, no, you're not wrong. Yeah. Well, everything on Voodoo, well before Black Messiah.
Yeah. That
was truly remarkable. Another one is when I was in middle school, growing up in Cleveland, going to see Sting solo on the Nothing Like the Sun tour. That was insane because I had loved The Police and was always trying to find a way, 11 years old, to sing all songs that were not appropriate, based on what they were about for someone that's 11. And a concert that was in every way glorious, an artist named Jose James, who has his own label now, Rainbow Bond Records, having seen him live since 2011. The first show in which I ever saw him so good, I went the second night, him at a no longer open establishment, Jazz Standard. So those are three of the most remarkable. And this is how nuts I am about music, having grown up as a singer and back in voice lessons now. I save my tickets from concerts and I have them in a book, and I know that people think that's weird. And for me to look back and see Earth, Wind, and Fire,
wow,
and Audra McDonald, and Layla Hathaway, and the Isley Brothers, and Robin Thicke, and Charlie Wilson, I can go back to who I was then and what was happening, and I know that a lot of people don't need to have the visual to remember that. They remember it. And that's, So one day you and I will talk about music, because I know when it comes to hip hop, you are the guy.
I don't know if I'm the guy, but what I love about this discussion is every single artist that you just said to me. Like, I consider myself very eclectic. And every time I hear that word, I think of Sister Act 2. I don't know if you remember that, but like, he's like, no, stupid, doesn't let you plug your box in. Anyway. So, but I like music in general. And so, I'm thinking, don't stand. So, and I'm
so close to me. Yeah.
Like, and then, hey girl, how you doing? My name is Charlie, last name Wilson, and I'm not a great singer, but what amazes me is every single thing that you're saying, every artist is sparking an effect.
Resonates with you.
Or yes. And that is this, right? That is connection. And that's the power that not only music holds in my life and others, but I would say just showing a genuine interest in others and getting to know folks where they are. So I want to answer.
Well, in the understanding component of fun, whether or not I vibe with someone else's taste in music, because I'm all about all genres, absent emo, dark metal, and the stuff that you have to be high to really enjoy, because I don't smoke anymore. I will appreciate and value when someone talks about waking up at 3 a.m. to be in line for tickets to see a performer or performers live, because in person, to see, and I mean, the word intimate is overused these days. And I don't mean it to be about, like at night with grownups, et cetera. But there is something, I can't think of a better word, to be in the room when people are performing what they wrote, what they are, they're making up, riffing, right then and there. I mean, to witness that's huge. Whether you go to church or not, to watch people kind of riff on solos from the church choir, it's a gift. And I am so happy when people tell me that they are excited to go to concerts. And yes, they can listen to Amazon Music and Spotify and Pandora, and that's great. And when they choose to get a whole album and listen to all of it and read the liner notes and learn where it came from and learn why it exists and how someone, taught themselves to play piano or learned to play drums when they were in the 3rd grade. I don't know, man. I mean, that stuff, the perspective on that and the vulnerability that someone's going to access by sharing that's huge.
I couldn't agree more. And I'm an individual that gets really emotional when I see creatives embodying and creating. And so we used to do these featured fundamentals of the month where we would actually have a physical location, invite people in, and we would live out a fundamental. And one of them was listening to music with a purpose. And so we had 4 artists come in, and they were all different genres. I mean, we had bluegrass and we had, all this stuff. And I want to get to why you came on here, which is to have a great time, which we're doing, but ultimately to talk about your amazing content and your journey. But to your point, the whole premise of this fundamental listen to music with a purpose was to have these different artists in different genres and bands and whatnot play a song and preface that song with the mindset that they were in when they wrote it, play the song, and then really get into what happened as a result or why they were there. And oh my gosh, tears. It was just so phenomenal and amazing experience. I wish we had the opportunity to do that with every single artist. But coming full circle, before we wrap up this discussion, I want to answer your question because again, it personally attaches itself to me. The concert question. So if you could go back in time, what concerts would you go to? Mm-hmm. I also first want to start with the greatest concerts that I've ever.
Please. Yes.
First of all, Bruno Mars. And the reason why is because he was just a phenomenal performer. And those of you that have listened to the Fundamism podcast regularly, you understand this because you've heard me say it before. Man, I saw him in a smaller venue, smaller crowd. And man, who knows at that time how many shows they were doing per year.
What year was this? 26? Was this 16, 18? Do you remember?
2016, something like that. 2017, Great. Something like that.
Awesome.
So they're performing, and at one point in time, Kate, it was like nobody was in the audience. It was him and his dancers just laughing and smiling and getting it and just being. And that was the moment that I was like, oh my gosh, I love this guy. So that's one. The second one, it wasn't necessarily just an amazing, it wasn't like their performance, but rather just the setting and the lights and all that stuff. There's this band that I really like called Tool. I don't know if you're familiar with Tool.
Of course.
So I saw them live. If I could go back in time, first and foremost, I would love to see Queen, specifically at Live Aid would have been amazing. I would have probably overwhelmed myself with all the people around me, and had a nervous breakdown. But them, obviously, I want to see Taylor Swift bad because I just love her and I want to take my daughter. And then I saw the Michael Jackson Cirque du Soleil deal. He would have been amazing to see live, obviously.
Agree.
So, all right, let's talk pre-2009. Pre-2009, what's going on in your life? What have you seen? Where have you been? What are you working on?
So are we beginning? So
wherever you want, sister.
Sure. So my life, I mean, I grew up with the notion and taught that you keep things linear. You know, you're born, you go to school, maybe you serve in the military, you come out of that, you work, you meet someone, you marry, you have children, and things are steady and they're even and they are a straight line.
Yes.
And I was all about that. I figured that was going to be my life. And then I failed the bar exam. And that was in October of 1999. And so what am I going to do? Hadn't really liked law school. Hadn't really found a place. All the activism and all the justice that I thought would be really prevalent there, not so much. So am I going to take the bar, get in 6 months and hope to, prep for it differently and pass and then get a job and what? No. Went to work in advertising, which was the right thing for me to do. And so all that I'd learned insofar as analysis and writing and research and advocacy, great, did that. And, kept up in that game for a minute and then moved to St. Louis because Mac's fiance was in residency there, worked for small business, and eventually worked at Sephora, where I moved myself to work in training and development. And that was an interesting place insofar as really learning how to listen. And because to listen and to hear are two different things.
For sure. And
what someone says and how they say it, we can, you're at someone's house and the food's not very good, but you have to be polite because, they're hosting. So the tone of your voice will indicate that this lasagna is delicious and you have a good look in your eye. And in the meantime, if you could say, honestly, you'd be like, yeah, this lasagna is delicious, like that. And so I stayed in the cosmetics business and worked in training and development for some brands. And then in 2009, everything changed again. And a week after, I was laid off from a job where I had been working in skincare and getting that knowledge known to people in stores, and I was on HSN for it. I was visiting a friend in Brooklyn. We were walking to my hairstylist's house somewhere else in Brooklyn. And when the wind blew my hat off my head, and I'm all about hats, I bent down the crosswalk to pick it up, and an ambulance hit me. And that it hit me hard. And I went into a coma. And fast forward, I had suffered a traumatic brain injury. And after 2 bouts in 2 different hospitals in New York, when I learned the day before I was released that New York law indicated directed I could not live by myself. For the first time since I was 14, I lived at my parents' house, which is in Ohio. So I got humbled hard and you had to put it back together, both medically, emotionally, intellectually, socially. And I do think I am still recovering from all of that because something like that happens and they think you're going to die and you're in a coma for 2.5 weeks and they don't think you're going to come out of it. And you do come out of it. Between not remembering things like who won the Best Actor Oscar in 1972 to things like the names of the people that you used to work with every day, you're going to have to commit to starting over. And since then, I have worked to make trauma a teaching tool because I don't have to have been bankrupt to know what it is to struggle with money. I don't have to have been left at the altar to know what it is to have screwed up relationships. And someone does not have to have been almost killed to know what it is to start from zero when they're a grown person. And so between the work that I do in strategy and communications at the Vanderbilt Republic and the Midheaven Network, and as the contributing writer for the Universal Hip Hop Museum, I wake up every day very grateful and honored to help whoever I can help and however I can help them to be happy and real and grateful.
Well, obviously a very impactful history and I have a million questions, as you obviously know. But for the Fundamism Podcast listener, I often struggle talking through some of the details of these fundamentals, because oftentimes, if you're not explicit with what exactly I need to do next to improve my quality of life or whatever it may be, and there is area of gray, oftentimes it's lost in translation, right? Because people, they get the concept, right? I get the concept, but I don't necessarily know how it relates to me in my life. So just to kind of recap, our fundamental today is believe it and behave it. Believe it and behave it. And when I say I struggle with some of these fundamentals and specifically teaching the how, what you may not be always so aware of that we don't explicitly call out is that we are consistently through this podcast episode demonstrating the behaviors of said fundamental. Take, for example, if you want stronger relationships in life, if you want to get to know people at less than or more than a surfacey, realm, then showcase a genuine interest and ask questions about their favorite concerts, or tell me about your life pre-2009, or this next question that I'm going to follow up with you. I saw on your website a really interesting quote: years of messes, miracles, and meanings. Years of messes, miracles, and meanings. So you go on to say, Kate, that you don't need to be left at the altar. You don't need to, have financial struggles to know all that stuff. But clearly you lived some messes. What are like, if you had to name like the top thing that you struggle with, the biggest mess that you found yourself in post 2009, what would it be?
The biggest mess for sure since 2009 was, as someone who long before Barbra Streisand sang it in Funny Girl, people needing people, definitely who I am. Friends, like legit friends, not the people we collect on social media who are not really our friends.
Like,
I became, right? How many thumbs up for real? Fake. One of the biggest challenges for me was one-sided relationships. And not necessarily intimate one-sided relationships, like dating one-sided relationships. I've come to realize that, not everyone's going to be your friend. They could be your cohort. They could be a collaborator. They could be a colleague. And my impression that people really wanted to know me and hang and, go through whatever, turns out not really. And so all that I was presenting and all that I was trying to do and all that I was way coming on too hard for, no one, as polite as they are trying to be, or maybe they don't think about it, no one really says to you, I get where you're going here and I'm grateful and I think it's cool and I really feel appreciated that you think I'm great. I don't really like you. And I only talk to you because you work with so-and-so or because you just did this and I really need someone that can do that. So just to break it down, it would be wonderful. I said to a friend a couple of years ago, who sent out the memo that said that the way to really mess with me is to ghost? And he said, well, no one needs to send out a memo on that. It's just obvious that that's who you are. Like, you want to connect with people. And if someone wants to really, do you dirty, they don't do that. And I said, but how is it obvious? And he laughed. He said, how is it not obvious? And so as I continue in the world and in this life, I am endeavoring to, I don't know if manage expectations is the right term, but not expect that every person I meet, that it seems nice and interesting, et cetera, and, caring about the world and it's all that, is going to be in my life in a deep, serious, long-term way. And I think I came to be about all this and people connecting people only on my side in how grateful I was to be in the world and the opportunity that I got to meet people, to know people, to hang with them. And sometimes I wake up and I have to remind myself, yes, you're grateful. And remember, you're here. Yeah. It's not going away. As much as tomorrow is not promised, be sure you're about today, doing stuff today, not thinking, well, maybe it's not going to be possible. No, stop. Right now, show up, be in it, act.
So speaking of showing up and acting, what I heard you say from a mess perspective is just the feeling overall. And I feel like a lot of people can relate to this, in that you were giving off a lot of energy in relationships, and you were in, and you were present, and you would do, and you would be, and you would act, but it wasn't always reciprocated, or you found to be that some were only in it for self-serving reasons or purposes. Is this a fair assessment of what I heard?
I'm careful to not think that people were self-serving. Professionally, sometimes that happens and has happened, where I think my challenge came up and still comes up sometimes is what they honestly want and what they are looking for, which, sometimes I'm very guilty of kind of mixing it all up, expecting that where I volunteer, I'm going to make friends, expecting that where I work, I will meet people that will want to, hang out after work. And I don't know if that's a negative thing. It's just something that I've always been like that. And I am learning that maybe it's better to focus on the reason that I am in a place, which is to say, to work, to volunteer, to whatever it is. And should it be that the people with whom I am there, we become friends, then that's a bonus. And that's a gift on top of what I'm doing.
I love it. Can I add to your list of why you're there?
Please.
What about maximizing life experience? What about meaning? Because that is another word that you outlined and something that you started this whole conversation with. The reason why I bring that up is because when I think of believing it and behaving it, right? I feel like you're an individual that believes that you're entirely capable of attracting the right people and surrounding yourself with the energy that you deserve. Is that fair?
Yeah, absolutely.
So when we think about behaving it, and this is less about you, Kate, and more for our podcast listeners, if indeed you're looking to enhance the level of trust or the authenticity of the relationships in your life or whatever it may be, first of all, it comes down to believing that you're capable of creating those relationships and having them, right? Because ego and self-doubt kind of creeps in. They say, well, wait a second, am I good enough? Or I don't know, right? Or why do they feel about me this way? Interestingly enough, you know this better than anybody. When you're ahead, worried about everybody else's thoughts about you or feelings, you're not really present and interacting with them anyway, right? And so in behaving it, first of all, addressing the fact that you do believe that you're capable, and behaving that and creating and facilitating these meaningful interactions. Hell, I love to just ask people, like, what I get a lot of, Kate, and I'm sure that you do as well, via social media, LinkedIn, whatever it may be, very cordial introductions. Hey, Paul, I love to meet with you, or, I love what you're doing. Let's connect. And then I'll connect. And immediately it's followed up by a sales pitch, right? And like, I just got one yesterday. It was an email and a sales pitch. And the email was really generic about, have you ever thought about speaking to try and sell your product or service? And I'm like, that is my product and service. Like, clearly you have done zero research at all. So here's my point. My point in saying all this is I like to follow up with these requests or connections with a simple ask. Like, what is your expectation of this relationship? Or, hey, Paul, I'd like to get on your calendar. I'd love to have coffee with you. Kate, I love the opportunity to meet new people. As I get a lot of these requests, I just want to make sure that I understand what the purpose of our meeting is. What does that look like to you? Some people won't respond at all, at which point I know they're just trying to kick it, right? And I'm not opposed to that, but I don't have time to do that with everybody, right? And the second aspect of is when people are deliberate in thinking about, well, what is the purpose of this meeting? Or what are my expectations? Well, then I'm setting myself up for success in either meeting or exceeding those expectations. So I love this conversation, and it brings us to the second word that came up is miracles, right? So messes and miracles. What's the biggest miracle that has happened to you in this journey of life?
Sure. So the biggest miracle for sure is I didn't die in 2009. And as a result, every single thing that I get to do in life is a gift. I mean, everything from bad traffic to, the wrong kind of experience at, the hair salon, which doesn't happen to me personally because my stylist is great. And
shout out.
It has to be. For what you said, Paul, a moment ago, intention and perception. I mean, I can do everything possible. I can hope, I can pray, I can practice, prepare as much as I can. However someone takes it, though, that's their choice. That's how they're going to do it. And so while believe and perceive is a rhyme, and I know people like that better, for me, what we intend and how people perceive, that's we have no control over that. And so that's the biggest miracle for me. I witness miracles all the time. I mean, a lot of the elections last year, the wins there were miracles. They were active miracles because they took people, shout out Stacey Abrams and everyone in Georgia, to make them happen. At the same time, I get to witness them, and that's glorious, and I'm grateful for it.
Well, that takes us to the final word, which is something that you're living each and every single day, and probably was the foundation for the book that you wrote and dropped, the crowning achievement in your writing career, which of course
so far.
So, although I would argue that working for the Hip Hop Museum is a pretty damn amazing plateau. I mean,
well, the story of how that happened is a good one. So if we have time, I want to share that because I think your audience might find value in how that came to be.
She said, if we have time, like I don't prioritize the things that I want to hear. Let's go. All right. So I do want to hear that story because I have it on my list here. Let's talk about meaning. So the thought of believe it and behave it, how to restart, reset, reclaim your life came to you how?
So you said earlier about and how 2021, how, in terms of fundamentals, how things get done, how we make it happen, how we, go from after we articulate, how do we activate? What I found for me in my, official recovery time, between all the doctors I was seeing, between all the different therapies, between all of the supports, I could not find for the life of me something that was bare bones, brass tacks blueprint. Okay.
Yeah.
And as a result, the self-hatred in which I found myself, the consistent screw ups, the relationship destructions, plural, all of the rabbit hole living that I did, a lot of it was preventable and a lot of it was fixable. Had I only known some super, honestly, basic things. And so when I came to be at a place in my life where I felt good enough about what I was thinking and what I was saying that could be useful to people, I decided, let me share it. Because it was something I needed. I cannot possibly be the only person who has to go back to zero as a grown person. Let me take what I've learned and make something useful for people. And that's where it came from.
Well, that, of course, what you just defined is literally the foundation of the philosophy for Fundamism, which isn't rocket science or isn't anything new. And as a marketer, you understand that so many people in our industry are really saying the same thing. We're just branding it differently or whatever it may be. So nothing that I do is like, oh my gosh, this guy is, but it is, to your point, useful, honest, and actionable. 3 words that I know resonate with you as well. So when we think about useful, honest, and actionable, let's talk about those dark days, like this self-destruction. Because one of the things that I admire about your story and what you're saying, how you present yourself, is there is a lot of folks out there, and I have a lot of them in my life and have interacted with a lot of them in my life. And at one point in time, I was one of them, to be honest. Stuff happens and it continues to happen. And I'm like, gosh, why me? Like, why does this shit continue to happen to me? Or why am I hitting every red light? Or, I took the LSAT, coincidentally. I don't know that you know that, but not many people know that. I took the LSAT because I didn't know what the hell I wanted to do. And my dad always said that I was a great arguer. So I was thinking law school, here we go. So I took the LSAT and I did fine. Like I could have potentially got into law school, but I didn't.
Probably better than me.
I don't know. Who knows?
I bet you did.
But my point is, there was a time where I didn't know what I wanted. I wasn't deliberate in first of all, believing that I was capable. But then the byproduct of that is, once I understand that I was capable, how do I go out and behave that shit? Because I don't know what it looks like, let alone how do I manifest it? So my point is, when I hear you say, I'm in this place of self-destruction and the relationships are going bad and jobs aren't going the way that I want to, whatever it may be, you come to it from a place of ownership that says, I realize that I was in more control of these outcomes than I gave myself credit for in the moment. And so I decided to do something as a result. And that came to be in terms of who you surrounded yourself with, writing a book, and providing real life tactical things that other people could take away, AKA what I call Fundamism. So what are some of the most impactful tactical items that really resonated with you? You said you hit on a couple of them and you were like, they just changed my life or my mindset. What are some that really resonated with you?
Again, I guess we can thank, someone on Vanderpump Rules for basic bitch, which is unfortunate because it's not a wrong thing to be, honestly. So the way I was, when I finally chose to recognize for real that I had survived something that was supposed to have killed me and initially thought to have killed me, I finally realized that there were reasons that this occurred, not only because there were crack medical teams working with me, on me, not only because people prayed and sent flowers and brought food and coffee, not only because my family and my friends were stalwarts and hopeful and, optimistic. It had to be because the world wasn't done with me yet. Mm. And so once I accepted this, I decided, initially it felt very selfish to ask myself, what fuels me? What keeps me going? And the answers like making money and seeing my name in a byline and titles and that were impressive, these things were not acceptable. Okay. Once I scratched those things, I asked myself really hard to what do you desire? And that was to experience and witness and advocate and cook and write and promote and share what I learned in the recovery process. And once I was clear with all of that, I was better at identifying who is doing something, making something, saying something remarkable, meaningful, beautiful, challenging. Where can I help them? And I certainly did way too much offering to help. And, I would love to help. And here's an example of how I can help. And when people didn't respond to it, I didn't take that as them politely being like, yo, we get it. We're fine. Thanks. I took it as they didn't know how to say, wow, that's so cool that you would do this for us. Thanks. Great. No, they just didn't want to say you're cool. And we just don't really want that or need that. So please go away and, take care. I think so. The root answer to your question, Paul, I think is being God honest about who you are leads you to what you want. A second to that, because things always go in threes, is asking for help. I mean, if you're not raised in a family where it's cool to ask for help, because, at least growing up in our family, you just needed to do it. And you needed to figure out how to do it. To ask for help was kind of like saying you were weak and you were incapable and you couldn't do it. That's very 80s, and I don't think people operate that way anymore. I mean, because things get better done when it's a group of us usually doing it. And I guess another thing but I'll say this though, there is courage that's required when you ask for help as a grown person, because people can judge you.
Sure.
The last thing,
vulnerability too.
100%. The last thing, I guess, that I came to really appreciate that was useful for me was people talk about fight or flight, in a trauma, in a crisis, fight or flight. And yeah, fight or flight, that's neuroscience. Also, there's dealing with it. Okay, something comes up, you can't leave. Okay, because it's your family, you're on contract, it's your program. There's really no one to fight because, like COVID-19, there's no one to blame. There's nothing that we can point our finger to and say, you're the one at fault. I'm going to take you down. You can't say see ya. And you can't say I don't feel like it. This is you. You have to trust that you will figure it out, all of it, however long it takes. One thing I cannot get people to embrace this. I hope I will. I mean, it won't be through hashtags. Tortoise over hare. Okay. Nothing really remarkable happens in a minute. Nothing remarkable happens overnight, even in cooking. So, pace yourself. Recognize as you get there, every step is getting you better, closer, happier.
I mean, this conversation is pretty remarkable, and it's only been 40 minutes. So,
you're sweet.
So here's what I took. Be honest with yourself, have the courage to ask for help, and deal with stuff. Address the issues as they come up. That one hits real close to home, because I think that there's a lot of folks out there that oftentimes hear what I'm saying about fundamism and gravitating towards the things that lift you up and make you smile, and think that I'm saying sweep all the crap that's not working under the rug. That's not it. What I am saying is address that stuff, like self-reflect and ask yourselves, how did I get here? What could be learned from it? And all this, your whole journey, right? Falling down and ensuring that you look around and see how bad it hurts and how skinned up your knees are and say, man, I don't want to do that again. So what do I need to do to make that happen? And then move the hell on to the stuff that is going to make you smile or happy or create more joy, fun, and fulfillment in life. So I love this stuff that you gave me here, because I think they are very actionable and honest in expressing vulnerability and being honest as well. I will say, and I'm going to speak for myself, but I'm certain there's a lot of listeners out there that can relate. There's something that I'm working on right now that I'm really excited about. And I've been working on it, Kate, for some time in my head. And it's a computer-based training platform that essentially is they're real life tactical fundamentals that you could go in and take a course on, and they're fun and engaging. It's not the old training realm that you and I hail from, right? It's fun and it's inviting and it's the brand, right? And so I want to go in, and I got a business coach and all that stuff. And we've outlined some of these modules and every single week, my next call will come up with my business coach, and I haven't done anything with the fundamism modules or the fundamental modules. Mm-hmm. And so my point is, I'm laying in bed and I'm saying, I want to create this platform. I want to create this additional value add. I want people to be able to understand tactically what to do or how to do it. So I believe it, but I'm not behaving it, because I'm not following up on those belief systems, which then make you question and start to really reflect. Well, do I truly believe it then? Do I really believe that I want to do that? Do I believe that I'm capable of it? And so sometimes believing and behaving is a cycle, right? Where you have to, everybody thinks they want to be a millionaire. Everybody thinks they want a stronger relationship with their spouse. Everybody thinks that they want their kids to listen to them, right? But believing it and understanding that's a want, and then going out and doing the behaviors that you're talking about to implement said desired outcome are two different things. So if we had to kind of encapsulate your whole book as we start to wrap up our time together and we get to some of the fun Q&A, where I'm just going to hit you with a couple of really awesome questions. They're not awesome because I wrote them, but rather the content that it's going to generate will be awesome. But rather, what would you say your book is like? If indeed I'm picking up the book and I say, Kate, what is this going to do for me? What am I going to take away from this? What would your response be?
While it is the title of the next book, and I'm not embarrassed to share it because it's in this one. What Believe It and Behave It will help someone do is to get to a place where they can define, design, and divine what they want. I mean, and that is as basic and as fundamental as anything. So defining it, it's this. It's a lemonade stand. It's a bakery. It's a consultancy for people that have changed careers 5 times, whatever it might be. It is a new way to train people that combines the old school tactics of writing things and talking about them, and the new school media that keeps people, happy about the cloud and grateful that they know Adobe and everything else. Designing it, how to make the blueprint, how to make the list, how to generate the tactics, the tools, and the necessities for this remarkable, spectacular, miraculous thing. And then divine is all of the feelings and the truths and the earnings and the facts about your excellence and your amazingness in this life. And because of all of that, what you want to exist will exist.
Define, design, and divine. Speaking of divine, we're going to get into all of that awesomeness that you just referenced that individuals have, that you manifest on a regular basis. So we're just I'm going to hit you with a couple of quick hitters. And I want to know the first things that come to your mind. So you are a self-proclaimed singer. What's your favorite song to sing?
Oh. My favorite song to sing is What You Won't Do for Love by Bobby Caldwell.
Okay. And why?
When I first heard it, where I was, who I was, before my throat got all screwed up and I needed to do voice therapy and work with a specific teacher who I'm working with now, there was something about the way both what that song says and the way Bobby Caldwell paired soul and standard and torch and R&B in a way that helped me feel like, I guess you wonder where I've been. And I could envision saying that, singing that to anybody that I cared about, not only like a guy with whom I had feelings, etc.
You know what you mentioned before we started?
Sure.
Before we started recording.
Yeah.
And side note, I literally met you 5 minutes before we started recording.
Fact.
I talked about thriving in awkward moments. And you assured me that things wouldn't get awkward, right? And
I did.
I think when people hear the word awkward, they think, like it's something it's so uncomfortable, right? And that's not necessarily what I mean. You know how many people would have the courage to just all of a sudden start singing a verse of a song, like live, or like on a podcast, like just all of a sudden sing it. That's embracing an awkward moment. You don't know how it's going to be received. You have the courage and the confidence that you are who you are and you're presenting it. And that's what I mean by embracing awkward moments. And gosh, damn it, I love it. So,
notice though, this is the Fundamism podcast. So for me to show up and be, like tiptoey and halfway with stuff, I mean, that's not right. That's not fundamism, because I think what people might get tripped up in the notion of fundamism is the end part, the next steps, where you're actually doing a thing. I mean, come on. I've been singing since I was 8. If I fully sucked, I certainly wouldn't do it. And if I was, if I felt that you were going to judge me, your audience was going to be all like, mute that. I wouldn't do it.
They've heard me sing.
It was for the moment. So, like I said, it wasn't for the gram, it was for the brand.
Oh, for sure. And they've heard me sing, so they would never mute you. Trust me. You are an individual that you've name dropped several individuals that have either resonated with you, like you've quoted speakers, philosophies, concepts. Who's an individual that maybe speaks or created some kind of philosophy that really connects with you most?
My list of who I'd like to meet is way too long for the show, so I'll save that for when we're drinking or something, or playing, like trivia at the bar or whatever. A person that I have admired and respected for a long time, that I was honored enough to meet in person, is Daveed Diggs. And he was in a remarkable play at the Public Theater a couple years ago called White Noise that Susan Lloyd Parks wrote. And he was so spectacular in this. And I live in New York, and I walk down there. So, the play ends, and some of the people that are in it, the production house, so they came through the lobby. People are having a cocktail and whatever. Happily, the security team of the Public Theater liked me, because I was there in the lobby for 2.5 hours after the show, only because I wanted to say to Daveed Diggs, thank you. To thank him for his performance in White Noise, to thank him for Hamilton, and to thank him and his friend Rafa Casal, they're also spectacular hip hoppers, for a movie they made a few years ago, which I love it so much. I just want to get it and show everyone, because I want everyone to watch it. It's called Blind Spotting.
Oh yeah, I'm familiar with that movie.
And I just wanted to thank him. And honestly, when I meet someone that's mad famous, that I'm kind of, what? The only thing I can think of to say is thank you. Because what they've done, what they've made, what they've sung, said, cooked, has moved me, changed me, inspired me. And that is all I really have to say, is thank you. So I said it to him that night and told him why. And he wasn't expecting it. So he kind of said to me, can I hug you? And I said, sure.
Pre-COVID.
And so, not that we talked for more than 3 minutes, because he had to, get home and get ready for the next everything. And so it doesn't matter that it's only a few minutes, and for the hours I was there, to be able to say to him, thank you for all that he'd been doing, was why I had stayed. And so that was really awesome.
Creativity. I love it. All right. Last question. I would be remiss if we didn't circle back before wrapping up with where people could find more information about you. The Universal Hip Hop Museum.
Sure.
How do you tell me the story? Tell us the story.
Universal Hip Hop Museum was on Kickstarter a few years ago to raise money for its initial capital. And I was one of, I'm sure, many people that supported the museum on Kickstarter. And the way Kickstarter, of course, works is if you don't make your full ask, you get nothing. So the museum did not achieve its full request. And that bummed me out. I'm sure a lot of other people. And so I contacted the museum via Twitter direct message after the Kickstarter wrapped, only to say, when you know what you need, let me know, because I want to help. and blessedly, gratefully, gracefully, Adam Silverstein, who is one of the founding board members and is the director of archives and donations, he responded to me and said, well, thanks. And so I started working for the museum, and we did a newsletter for a little while. And now I write the features and interviews that are on the website and are emailed to those that have signed up and those that are already involved and those that will be members of the museum. And so I share that because it was important to me. The genre, the movement, the history of this music, this community is important to me. And so I thought, well, if I can help, I'll help. And so that's how I got there.
Took a stab through a Twitter message. And coincidentally, I know that you're a fan of Cleveland Heights and our very own Travis Kelce. That's exactly how I connected with him, via Twitter, and then charity events and all that jazz. So shot in the dark, you take a stab. Hey, if you believe it and behave it, sister, things will happen. So Kate, listen, I'm enamored with you. First of all, I thoroughly enjoyed our conversation.
Me too. Thank you.
Hey, listen, you don't have to thank me because you blessed the Fundamism Podcast listeners with a really authentic interaction and some tactical tips for how to believe and behave it. So if somebody wants to get to know you better or swoop up your book, where would they go?
So on the socials, I am the same on all the socials, and that's Glossgal, GLOSSGAL. And if they want to see anything that I've written, including see all the media related to the book and get the book via all the platforms where it is, which is everywhere around the world on the webs and in independent stores. It's on kateharvie.com, and that's KATEHAR, V as in Victor, IE.com.
Love it. Well, listen, as a lover of music, you'll respect this. We've only just begun. I had an absolute blast. I can't wait to keep connecting with you. Thank you so much. Don't go anywhere, because I want to give you thanks to you, the Fundamism Podcast listener. We couldn't be whatever the hell we are without you and your devotion to living a life filled and overflowing with joy, fun, and fulfillment. Not to say that we have all the answers. Lord knows I don't, but we're seeking them. We understand that there can be something better out there. And if we believe it and behave it, then potentially our quality of life will be improved as a result. From the bottom of our heart, we'd like to say thank you for your support. Until we catch you on the flip side, be safe, smile often, have fun, and deuces.